So I want to ask you one final thing, and it's a fun one. One of the things that you talk about in the book a lot is art and music and how that played into these movements. And one of the great prophets, Emma Goldman, said, "Any revolution without dancing is no revolution at all." And you ran a zine at one point in your life. Which one of these days we got to do just a zine chat where we just talk zines.
Happy to.
Oh, we're gonna do it.
I have one of the world's all-time great collections of zines.
Really? Oh,
yeah, somewhere in the attic. I mean, all of that stuff from the 80s and 90s is all bundled up and taped into boxes and stuff like that. I mean, I'll get it out when I will never get it out. My daughter can get it out when she's, 50 years old and like, look at these old concert posters, Urge Overkill, Nirvana. Who are these people?
Oh,
what
man.
was he doing? What was he up to? Anyhow, Mission of Burma. What could that mean? What could that mean? But that was who I was. I wanted to be a cultural historian. My first book was about that sort of thing.
I'm writing down Thomas Frank as a punk rocker right now. Just so
that was a long time ago.
Not surprising at all. That's awesome to note. I actually just finished one of the books I read recently. I read Cured by Lowell Terhurst, the original drummer for The Cure. And it's just, I mean, that's one of my favorite bands. The Cure is one of my favorite bands. And it really made me wish I could just have a time machine and go back to some of those tours. Because for a lot of them, I was alive, but I was, 3. I probably wouldn't have appreciated it.
Oh, yeah. So that was my life for a long time. That was so important to me. And that's the Baffler magazine was, that was the idea there, was to bring together that kind of musical culture with politics and with social criticism and somehow mash it all together. And we were kind of successful at that back in the day, back in the 1990s. Anyhow, where was I going with this? But that's how I started. I was a cultural. I wanted to be a cultural historian, and I got into politics kind of sideways, because one of the first things you realize is that, the culture in America, you can't understand the culture of this country until you understand business, until you understand the culture industry. And from there, I sort of got into politics sideways. But yes, I'm sort of inching my way back. And you're right. And the chapter about the 1930s, I'm really proud of that. The chapter in my new book about the 1930s and the movies, the poetry, the novels of the period. It's all part of what. Yeah, go ahead.
So my question: do you see some of that happening today? And then in addition, and I'm basing this question off of some of the things I'm witnessing firsthand right now because of the pandemic and what may or may not be the state of Hollywood when all this is over. Do you see a resurgence of that? And do you see some of that happening today, where like art and music and literature is really going to come together with all this and kind of be motors for the movement, so to speak?
It's possible, but it's unlikely, because there's this tension in the kind of culture that I describe between embracing the mass of humanity and distancing yourself from them because they're tasteless and stupid and conformist. And since the 1960s, we've really been on the latter, doing the latter sort of thing. Where the whole idea of subcultures is that you're smarter than everybody else, which I've never, which I can't stand, but that's a huge part of it. And so it would be odd to get a return to the kind of populist. They actually had a term at the time that they didn't use the word populist in the 30s in the way that I've been using it. It referred to a historical thing in the 1930s. It referred to something in the 1890s, but they did use the words popular front. They used that all the time. And they used it to describe this very populist culture that it was all of the decade of the common man, Frank Capra movies, that sort of thing. Social realist novels about, people going on strike. By the way, I collect those. This is one of my hobbies. I collect art and novels from the 1930s. But we'll talk about that some other time.
Well, I'll give you this anecdote because you might appreciate this. I got at my P.O. box, and this would have been about 2 years ago now, and there was no return address, and it came from Boston, I believe, and it was this little pamphlet, and I don't know how old it is. I get the vibe it's very old. I don't know if it's original or not, but it was an IWW pamphlet of Union hymns.
Yes, I actually got that. I've got that around here somewhere.
It was so cool, man.
They still print those, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this was very worn. So either it was...
Yeah, it was old. It was an original.
Right. Or they made it worn on purpose. Like maybe they just got it for $2 and were like, well, I want Ron to think. I don't know. But I haven't been able to... When I was playing Boston last, I wanted to announce from the stage, hey, by the way, if you're the person who sent me this, come say something after the show. And I just forgot. And I've mentioned it on the show a few times, but nobody stepped forward to say that was from me. Because I was like, I want to say thank you because that's really cool. And I've saved it, of course. And so I don't know who sent me that, but I do have it. So
that's awesome.
So it's good stuff, man.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and